Her Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Wednesday, December 24th. Your reader for this hour is Dasha. President Trump has declared new federal holidays. By Kinsley Crowley and Mary Walworth Holdridge. President Trump signed an executive order on December 18th giving some extra time off to federal workers around the upcoming holidays. Trump declared Christmas Eve and December 26 as federal holidays, extending the existing federal holiday on Christmas Day into an extra long weekend. While many private businesses observe federal holidays with paid time off for employees, they're not required to do so. That means Trump's newly declared upcoming holidays are only applicable to departments and agencies within the federal government. Here is what to know about Trump's most recent holiday order. Did Trump make Christmas Eve a holiday? Yes, but only for federal workers this year. Some employees may still have to report to work at the discretion of agency leaders, according to Trump's order. Private businesses can decide to give their employees time off, but they're not obligated to by law. Did Trump make December 26th a federal holiday? Yes, but only for federal workers this year. To designate a day as a federal holiday in perpetuity, legislation must pass through Congress and be signed into law by the president. This was last done when Juneteenth was added in 2021 under the Biden administration. It's not entirely uncommon for presidents to issue temporary holiday orders, especially around the winter celebrations. In 2014, President Barack Obama declared December 26, which landed on a Friday, the same as it does this year, a federal holiday. Trump did the same for Christmas Eve during his first term in 2019 and 2020. What will be open or closed on Christmas Eve and December 26? While federal government offices may close their doors the days before and after Christmas this year, locations like banks, post offices, and private retailers will largely remain open. U.S. Postal Service post offices will be closed, and mail will not be delivered on Christmas Day, according to the agency's website. Post offices will be open for retail transactions on December 24th and December 26th, and mail will be delivered on those days. According to the Federal Reserve, banks will follow the typical schedule of being open for business on December 24th and 26th and closed on Christmas Day. Major private retailers, such as Target, Walmart, and Costco, are by and large following the traditional rule of only closing on December 25th. Target stores will be open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve and closed on Christmas Day. The stores will reopen for normal hours on Friday, December 26th. Similarly, Walmart stores, Costco, and other private businesses will be closed on Christmas Day. Trump has previously said there are too many holidays. Trump has bemoaned how many paid holidays there are in the United States. "We already have too many holidays in America," he wrote in a May 5th Truth Social post when proclaiming celebratory but working holidays to honor World War I and World War II. "There are not enough days left in the year. We were workers then and we are workers now." Also on Juneteenth, Trump said the United States has too many non-working holidays. "It is costing our country billions of dollars to keep all these businesses closed," Trump posted on Truth Social on June 19th. "The workers don't want it either. Soon we'll end up having a holiday for every once working day of the year." There are 12 federal holidays in 2025. 2 of them were on the same day. He has issued new holiday proclamations like Victory Day for World War II on May 8th, Victory Day for World War I on November 11th, though that day is already federally recognized as Veterans Day, and Gulf of America Day on February 9th. Trump says Navy will build Trump-class battleships, by Sibel Mays Osterman. President Donald Trump has announced the construction of 2 new Trump-class battleships that would be the first in a golden fleet of Navy ships in the latest instance of Trump naming things after himself. "Each one of these will be the largest battleship in the history of our country, the largest in the history of the world," Trump said, flanked by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and Navy Secretary John Phelan during a news conference at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida on December 22nd. 3 pictures of ships labeled with the name USS Defiant stood behind him. Trump said 20 to 25 ships eventually would make up the new class of ships. Construction of the first 2 ships would begin immediately, he said. The ships would be equipped with hypersonic weapons, lasers, cruise missiles, and nuclear weapons, Trump said. Artificial intelligence would also play a big factor in the ship's capabilities, he said. The Navy will lead construction of the ships along with the president, who called himself a very aesthetic person. The announcement comes a few days after Trump's name was added to the outside of the iconic Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. on December 19th, less than 24 hours after the center's Board of Trustees voted to rename it the Trump Kennedy Center. Trump has criticized U.S. warships since his first term as terrible-looking and pressed to revamp the fleet. The Trump-class ships will upgrade Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers named after a World War II and Korean War-era admiral. The class was commissioned in 1991 and is still in production. Phelan announced December 19th that he had directed the construction of a new frigate class as part of the Golden Fleet. The Navy aims to launch the first hull in the water in 2028, he said. The new class of ships will be heavier than current Navy destroyers, officials told the Wall Street Journal, which first reported Trump's announcement. Phelan announced in late November that the Navy was ditching plans to build the last 4 ships in the Constellation-class frigate program as part of a strategic shift. That program was bogged down by construction delays and design issues. Tariff rebate checks face uncertainty in Congress. Holiday shoppers mixed on prospect of $2,000. By Christopher Cann, Trevor Hughes, Phaedra Threathen, Eduardo Cuevas, Alyssa Guffey, and Daniel DeVisay. For the last year, Ruby and Nathaniel Jumper have tried saving up for a cross-country move. The couple, living in Mercedes, Texas, decided in January to relocate to Tennessee for better work opportunities and a bigger apartment for the family. But bills, surprise expenses, and the high cost of groceries have set them back over and over again. "It's been rough, honestly," said Ruby Jumper, adding that the financial squeeze meant hard decisions this holiday season. "Usually they get 3 or 4 gifts," she said, speaking about her 3 children, ages 17, 11, and 8. "This year, they're only going to get 1. As the Jumpers stow away money when they can, they are closely watching one idea being floated in Washington: $2,000 rebate checks. In recent months, President Donald Trump has repeatedly previewed the idea of a tariff dividend that would hand thousands of dollars to lower and middle-income Americans, paid for by money brought in by his global import taxes. The idea, which comes as polls show Americans increasingly souring on Trump's handling of the economy, faces long-shot odds from bidders, logistical hurdles in Congress, and angst from some economists. Over the 2025 holiday season, USA Today Network journalists spoke with holiday shoppers across the country about the prospect of a tariff rebate in 2026 and what $2,000 would mean to them. For many, the idea stirred thoughts of catching up, of paying bills, of regaining financial security they recently lost. Buying gifts, they said, was just another reminder that a dollar doesn't buy what it used to. "Prices are just exorbitant," said Andrea Thace in Milwaukee, adding that she's buying fewer Christmas gifts than usual for her family. "The cost of things is just insane." Trump has repeatedly floated the rebates as a way to put money in wallets at a time when Americans are struggling with years of cumulative inflation. But the idea, which hasn't been fleshed out into a detailed plan, faces an uncertain future. Multiple independent reports have concluded that the money collected in tariff revenue won't be enough to fund sweeping rebate checks. The Nonpartisan Tax Foundation, for example, said the checks would cost the government $279.8 billion to $606.8 billion, depending on who gets them. That's more than the $158.4 billion the tariffs will generate in 2025, the nonprofit found. Economists have also raised concerns that the tariff dividend could contribute to a rise in inflation, as the COVID-19 stimulus checks did. On Capitol Hill, the idea of rebate checks has been met with lukewarm responses, even from some Republicans. "I think it's an idea that needs to be fleshed out," Representative Ryan Zinke, Republican of Montana, told Politico in November. "We're $37 trillion in debt. To me, I think our bus is full. If you want to add something, then take something off the bus. That's just me." In a statement, White House spokesperson Kush Desai said, The administration is committed to putting the federal government's historic tariff revenue to good use for the American people. In downtown New Orleans, Chris Thiel's kids brushed powdered sugar from their shirts as their parents considered their holiday shopping. Leaving the Riverwalk Outlaws Mall with a few small purchases, including beignets for the kids, Thiel and his wife, Shawnell, said the cost of everything is up. The smallest toys that last year cost $10 are now $20, he said. I'm going to spend less, Chris Thiel, 46, added. It's not looking too good out here. Thiel is not alone. Multiple polls released in December show a large portion of U.S. adults intend to spend less on holiday shopping this year than they did last year, with many blaming the high cost of goods. Analysts and retailers are aware of this and have hung their hopes on high earners to bring in holiday sales. Upper-income shoppers likely will account for a disproportionate share of holiday sales and the bulk of this year's growth from the 2024 shopping season, said Jennifer Timmerman, senior investment strategy analyst at Wells Fargo Investment Institute, in a Black Friday analysis on November 24th. Less wealthy shoppers, she said, will be hunting for discounts and leaning on buy now, pay later financing to get through the holidays. Thiel said he's heard grumblings about Trump's plan for a $2,000 tariff rebate, but he said he'd believe it when he sees it. He said that with 3 kids, $2,000 would be helpful, but probably wouldn't change their lives. Shawnell Thiel said she's found no matter how much money she has, the bills seem to expand right alongside. It's a lot of money, but it's going right back out the door the same way it came in, Chris Thiel said. In Milwaukee, Laura Cresswell said she doesn't have much hope in the tariff checks, pointing to the once floated Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, checks that never materialized. I think it's another Trump Chaco, Trump always chickens out moment, where he makes a big promise, she said. Like DOGE was supposed to send out checks. I don't think it's going to happen. If she's wrong, however, she said she'd use the money to build a rainy day fund. My savings are really depleted, she said. To have a little cushion again would be really nice. Many are in a similar position. A recent survey from Bankrate found that 8 in 10 Americans have not increased their emergency savings in 2025, with more than a quarter of respondents saying they have less in savings now than they did in 2024. Cresswell, who spoke with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, part of the USA Today network, as she was Christmas shopping, said she's spending less on gifts this year because of the cost of groceries. So much of everyday living, groceries, eggs, meat, everything is just so much more expensive, she said. You just try and save up through the year, but there's a lot less to go around. Economists and financial analysts say a combination of sticky inflation and persistently high prices at the grocery store accounts for much of the squeeze lower and middle income earners are feeling. And although inflation has since eased, dropping 2.7% in November, American shoppers are still paying nearly 30% more for groceries compared with 6 years ago, according to the Grocery Price Index from Data Assembly, a data firm tracking retail pricing. This article goes on with some interviews from other people. And if you'd like to hear more, you can call the station and we will read it to you. Please call 716-821-5555, and we will be happy to complete this article, which goes on in the same vein. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 14 minutes after the hour. At least 5 people are dead after a Mexican Navy plane crashed, by Michael Loria. A Mexican Navy plane crashed amid foggy conditions in Texas while on an aid mission for an organization that helps child burn victims, killing 5 people on December 22nd, the country's government announced. The airplane, a King Air ANX 1209, crashed while carrying 4 members of the Mexican Navy and 4 civilians. The plane went down in Galveston Bay, U.S. Coast Guard spokesperson Petty Officer Luke Baker told USA Today. 2 people were recovered from the site of the crash alive, and 1 person remains missing. Mexican Navy officials said the plane was conducting a specialized medical transfer. The mission was on behalf of the Michoud and Mao Foundation, a group that helps children burn victims. In a statement on social media, the organization expressed its sorrow after the fatal crash. At the Michoud and Mao Foundation, we express our deepest solidarity with the families affected by these events. We share their pain with respect and compassion, honoring the memory of those lost. Associated Press reported that the patient on board was a 1-year-old. It's not immediately clear if the infant survived. U.S. Coast Guard authorities responding to the crash rescued 6 people and recovered 2 bodies. Baker deferred questions about the status of passengers to the Federal Aviation Administration. The FAA did not immediately respond to requests for information. Trump's special envoy saddens Greenland's prime minister by Kim Hjelmgaard. Greenland Prime Minister Jens Friedrich Nielsen said he's sad and disappointed that President Donald Trump has renewed his interest in acquiring Denmark's island territory by appointing a special envoy to the Arctic island. Nielsen made the comments December 23rd in a Facebook post a day after Trump asserted that the United States needs Greenland for its national security and named Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry his representative to lead the charge. Landry took office as governor in January 2024 and has publicly supported Trump's idea. Nielsen and Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen repeatedly have rebuked Trump for his designs on Greenland. You cannot annex another country, not even with an argument about international security, Nielsen and Frederiksen said in a joint statement December 22nd. Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders, and the U.S. shall not take over Greenland. Greenland is a former Danish colony with a population of about 57,000. Its government has the right, subject to a national referendum, to declare independence under a 2009 agreement. But the territory remains heavily reliant on fishing and Danish welfare subsidies. Denmark, a NATO ally, is also responsible for Greenland's defense and security. Trump raised the idea of acquiring Greenland during his first term, when he suggested the United States might buy it. In his second term, he's floated the idea of annexing it. The vast majority of Greenlanders reject the idea of becoming part of the United States, though some favor independence from Denmark. Greenland's strategic location, it sits along the shortest route from Europe to North America, could prove useful for a U.S. ballistic missile warning system. The U.S. military already maintains a permanent presence at the Puttevik Air Base in northwest Greenland. Authorities have found 3 inmates who escaped from a Georgia jail. The trio is back in custody and face several serious charges. Authorities have captured 3 inmates, including one charged with murder, who escaped from a county jail east of Atlanta. The trio fled the DeKalb County Jail early on December 22nd, according to the county's sheriff's office. The absence was discovered during a routine security check, which prompted internal security teams to search the jail. All 3 have since been located and taken back into custody, the sheriff's office confirmed. The sheriff's office did not provide further details on how the inmates were able to escape. Several local law enforcement agencies, along with the U.S. Marshals Service, assisted in the search. The sheriff's office warned during the search that the inmates might be armed and were considered dangerous. The DeKalb County Jail is in Decatur, east of downtown Atlanta. The sheriff's office said the 3 inmates were being held on multiple charges. They were identified as Stevenson Charles, 24, charged with murder and armed robbery; Yusuf Minor, 31, charged with 2 counts of armed robbery and 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony; and Naud Johannes, 25, charged with simple assault, arson, and unlawful acts of violence in a penal institution. The Marshals Service most aggressively sought Charles, according to WSB-TV in Atlanta and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. The agency described Charles as a violent fugitive. The Marshals Service told WSB-TV that Charles had been charged with or convicted of murder, aggravated assault, weapons violation, sodomy on a person less than 10 years old, kidnapping, carjacking, armed robbery, and probation violations. In 2024, Charles pleaded guilty in Georgia to false imprisonment, aggravated sodomy, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of armed robbery, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. He was sentenced to life in prison. Before his guilty plea, the district attorney's office said he was convicted in 2023 in a federal court in Florida for carjacking, kidnapping, and robbing 5 people in Miami. Let the message go out to Mr. Charles and all the other fugitives we are looking for, and we will find you, Thomas E. Brown, the U.S. Marshal for Northern District of Georgia, said in a statement before the capture. Any person who violates the laws of the United States will not be allowed a moment of rest. You will never find peace. You will answer for your crimes. The escape in Georgia comes just weeks after another Georgia inmate escaped from custody at a hospital and used ride-hailing services, including an Uber ride, to evade sheriff's deputies. The inmate, identified as Timothy Shane, 52, was captured after about 3 days in Covington, a small city outside Atlanta. On December 19th, authorities arrested the last of 3 inmates who escaped from a Louisiana jail in early December by removing mortar and concrete blocks from a degraded part of a wall. In June, a former Arkansas police chief, convicted murderer and rapist Grant Hardin, was recaptured after a 12-day manhunt. Hardin had escaped from prison disguised as a guard and made it only a mile from the facility before he was found. Earlier in the year, 10 inmates brazenly escaped from a New Orleans jail. Authorities said the inmates fled through a hole in a cell wall after ripping away a toilet and sink unit on the morning of May 16th. Most of the escapees were caught in the weeks after, and since then, multiple people have been charged with helping the inmates escape or stay on the run. The final inmate was recaptured October 8th in Atlanta, nearly 5 months after the escape. Department of Homeland Security offers $3,000 to undocumented migrants who self-deport, by Bart Jansen. The Department of Homeland Security is tripling its payments to undocumented immigrants who deport themselves for the holidays to $3,000 per person. Under President Donald Trump's stricter immigration enforcement, the department has been offering $1,000 in free travel to persuade people without legal authority who remain in the U.S. to leave. The advantage to the government is avoiding the average cost of $17,121 to arrest, detain, and remove immigrants, officials have said. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said U.S. taxpayers are generously tripling the accept bonus through December 31st. Illegal aliens should take advantage of this gift and self-deport because if they don't, we will find them, we will arrest them, and they will never return, Noem said in a statement. Those who are deported are barred from ever returning, but by leaving voluntarily, undocumented immigrants could potentially return to the U.S. eventually through legal channels. The department invites undocumented immigrants to use Customs and Border Protection's CBP Home app to process their self-deportations. An estimated 1.9 million undocumented immigrants have left the country this year, according to DHS officials, although the figure is difficult to corroborate because of people leaving voluntarily. Tens of thousands have used the CBP Home app, officials said. The right-leaning Center for Immigration Studies estimated a decline of 2.2 million foreign-born people during the first 6 months of the year, based on projections in the current population survey of the U.S. Census. The figure represents the largest drop in 1 year in decades. From the front page of the Money section, barely believable. Jeep AI campaign wins praise from experts despite ethical concerns. A bear leans in the window of the Jeep Grand Cherokee while a woman holding a microphone asks the bear a question. The woman's mouth does not quite sync with the words she's delivering, and then the bear starts talking. Something is amiss. The opening scene of Jeep's artificial intelligence-generated advertisement may look real to some and uncanny to others. Regardless, it has generated millions of views on social media. The video is part of Jeep's recent move to go all in on artificial intelligence, being one of the first and largest automotive companies to use AI-generated visuals on a large scale for an advertising campaign. In Jeep's latest social media advertisements featuring things as unbelievable as talking animals or simple renderings of the Grand Cherokee evolving over time, AI-generated visuals are leading the way. The ads were developed in collaboration with High Dive Studios, a high-profile ad agency from Chicago. The use of AI can be controversial, with critics leveling that assigning creative work, such as advertising a pair of dancing squirrels, to a trained computer algorithm can take a potential job opportunity away from a human being. Coca-Cola, for example, faced backlash in 2024 for using AI-generated visuals in its holiday-themed ad campaign, with detractors claiming it was lifeless and full of glitchy inconsistencies. Jeep, on the other hand, is not turning people away by using AI. In fact, experts who spoke to the Free Press, part of the USA Today network, said Jeep's use of AI is worth praising. And Stellantis' top marketing boss said he will keep on using the technology. According to experts, we like it. Jonas Wagner, a partner and managing director in the automotive and industrial practice at global consulting firm AlixPartners, said that automotive companies should have started using AI visuals to market their products yesterday. Generative AI models like ChatGPT, Sora AI, or Google's Veo 3 are at the core of marketing nowadays, said Wagner, who said he has spoken to advertising agencies that have been blown away by what AI can do. The technology, if used instead of animators, actors, directors, and camera operators, stands to save marketing firms and companies some money, Wagner said. The consulting firm Wagner works for recently published a study that found consumer-facing AI technology, meaning such things as customer-serving chatbots and AI-powered marketing campaigns, could save more than $7 billion yearly for automotive companies across the industry. In terms of marketing, the report reads, "We've seen generative AI transform automotive marketing by cutting content production costs by up to 60%. But the technology must be used successfully, and the key is in the execution, according to Wagner. There are ways to use AI wrong, Wagner said, pointing to techniques that come across as awkward or disconnected from the brand on display. Wagner said that Jeep's identity as a rambunctious brand, coupled with the ridiculous content of the ad, an eagle with an Appalachian twang praising Jeep's new turbo four-banger as obviously fake, does not threaten to alarm customers or make them feel tricked. If you apply AI, you have to make sure that people know it without putting a stamp saying AI generated, Wagner said. Jeep did it in a way that's clearly identified. Ayala Rubio, an associate dean and marketing professor at Michigan State University's Broad School of Business, praised the ads, saying they're fun and suit Jeep's brand identity. Rubio found the talking animals cute, but was also impressed with another AI-generated Jeep ad spot that depicts the Jeep Cherokee morphing from one generation to another as it cruises through various landscapes. Jeep is all about being groundbreaking, off-road, thrill-seeking risk-takers, right? Rubio said. So in this case, it works. It's all about the future. We are heading to the future, and the future is AI. Speaking of the future, Rubio said she sees AI as another stride in the marathon of human evolution. It is extremely exciting to some, extremely concerning to others, but that's part of the process, Rubio said. Concerns about ethics or taste, Rubio said, are warranted, though maybe a bit of an overreaction to change. Strong reactions to disruptive technologies like AI are to be expected, she said, adding that the current backlash against AI reminds her of developments like the internet, television, and photo editing software. People thought that once we had computers, there would be no more universities, no more schools. I remember the same conversation about TV. When we started using TVs while teaching in the classroom, they said there'd be no more teachers, said Rubio, who teaches for a living. AI is no different. 1986 Studios, the advertising agency sub-brand of HiDive that made the Jeep AI ads, preempts these criticisms in notes on its website. Quote, "This Jeep Cherokee teaser was built entirely with AI-generated video, an intentional way to tell a story of evolution using the most advanced tools available. The secret? We didn't abandon traditional craft. We combined AI with our experts in design, editorial, animation, and compositing, plus historically sourced Jeep imagery that grounds the piece in authenticity. We're not replacing creatives. We're equipping them with new tools to do more," the disclaimer reads. You are listening to a reading of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 29 and a half minutes after the hour. Continuing this article, Rubio is familiar with concerns about AI replacing jobs and the technology itself, though she's not as worried as some. Anyone that works with AI correctly and professionally knows that especially when it comes to creative work, it's a dialogue, Rubio said. AI does not replace the human input, it makes it better. Legally, ads using AI are subjected to the same advertising standards as any other commercial, meaning they must not be unfair, deceptive, or misleading to a reasonable consumer. There's no specific law in the books outlining how AI-generated visuals should or should not be used in visual advertising. Jeep, to be sure, made sure to disclose the usage of the technology in the fine print at the bottom of the ad featuring animals giving reviews. Fictionalization. No real animals were used in the creation of this message. Wild animals aren't this nice. If you see a wild animal talking, call your doctor. The vehicle depicted throughout was created using AI technology and is for illustrative purposes. Production models may vary. Olivier Francois, the CEO of Fiat and Stellantis' top marketing boss, said he's excited to leverage AI visuals. To him, the AI critters look as good as real animals. The only difference is the fake animals can talk. Either you use a real animal or fake one, but a real one's risky, and fake ones are not compliant to the vision, Francois said, adding that some people may criticize the brand for using real animals, but traditionally fake animated animals don't look real enough to him. Thanks to AI, you can use real animals. I mean, they're not fake, Francois said. The animals that appear in the ad are not necessarily real, but they are composites of thousands of images of real animals on which visual generating tools are trained. Francois, who is behind some of Stellantis' most iconic advertisements, like 2011's Made in Detroit Chrysler ad, said he has quickly adopted AI into his process beyond just visual generation. Francois said he has used AI-generated voiceovers, training computer systems on audio of voiceover artists like his friend Kevin Yon, who was the narrator in the 2011 Made in Detroit Super Bowl spot. Yon from Grand Rapids died in 2018, and Francois secured the blessings of his family to mimic his voice with an AI model for another Stellantis advertisement released in May. Francois said he knows AI technology may give some jobs that used to be exclusively for humans to robots, but the creative spirit, he said, is still intact. Asked if he fears for a day when Stellantis creates a Francois-inspired bot, trained on all the ads he has produced to take over the direction of the company's advertising, he shrugged. Francois responded at length and detailed how the day-to-day of managing advertising for 14 automotive brands is a task for which no computer is fit. Which cars have the highest repair costs in 2025? By Fernando Cervantes, Jr. When it comes time to buy a car, cost is the most important factor for a majority of Americans. But the cost of actually owning a car goes way beyond what you actually pay at the dealership. Whether that may be maintenance in the form of oil changes, new tires, or repairs from wear and tear, the cost of keeping a car in tip-top shape depends on the brand of the vehicle and sometimes whether that brand is foreign or domestic. A survey conducted by Consumer Reports this month asked drivers what their maintenance costs were over the past 12 months. In it, they found that luxury vehicles like Land Rover and Porsche were the most expensive to maintain, with American brands like Buick and Lincoln among the most affordable. The difference to maintain a car on average between some brands can be thousands of dollars over a 10-year time frame, said Stephen Ellick, who oversees auto data analytics at Consumer Reports. Costly are car brands. According to the Consumer Reports, the cumulative cost of maintenance for cars was taken over 10 years of ownership. Here's the list of the 10 most expensive brands to maintain. Number 1 is Land Rover, more than $19,000. Porsche, almost $18,000. Mercedes-Benz, $12,500. Audi, $11,500. BMW, $11,000. Volvo, $10,500. Mini, $10,200. Infiniti, $10,020. Ram, $8,650. And Subaru, $7,920. The average cost to charge a Tesla is $14, reports say, by Jacob Livesey. Every Tesla car has a battery that must be charged. That charging can be done at various places for various prices. Electric cars can be charged using a regular power outlet at home, but that method takes a long time. Those who want faster at-home charging times can install a specialized home charger. But according to USA Today report, in March 2022, the cost for a charger installation can run $800 to $2,000. The paper said it could be possible to get credits from utilities if the installation comes with a dedicated meter. USA Today also said the Department of Energy estimates that 81% of charging comes at home, 14% at work, and 5% at commercial chargers. How much does it cost to charge a Tesla? According to Energy Sage, the average cost to fully charge a Tesla is $13.96, although the cost can be expected to range anywhere from $9.62 to $18.30, depending on the model. Energy Sage said its data was compiled from electric bills of U.S. consumers. At Tesla supercharger stations, expect to pay more in exchange for the faster charging time. The price for a full charge varies by model and battery capacity, but using the U.S. average price of 14 cents per kilowatt hour, Electrek calculates that most models cost between $4 and $5 for 100 miles of charge if you're charging at home. The Model 3 is the cheapest by far, with an estimated cost per 100 miles of charge in the $3 range, with slight variations based on the range rating of vehicle. Is charging a Tesla cheaper than gas? As an example, according to Fortune, national average gas prices got up to $4.62 in late May 2022. In 2026, new vehicles will have to average 40 miles per gallon under new regulations, according to Tex Explorer. With 40 miles per gallon, driving 100 miles will cost $11.55 in fuel if you're paying $4.62 per gallon. Tesla can range as low as around $3 a charge for 100 miles, but be aware gas prices will change and, in fact, could get lower as events around the world change. How much does a Tesla battery cost to replace? Well, it's unlikely you'll need a new battery anytime soon. According to Inside EVs, Tesla battery capacity still averages 90% after 200,000 miles of use. If you find yourself in need of a replacement battery, the price will depend on what model you have. For a basic battery replacement, Way estimates a cost of $13,000 or $14,000, while more expensive models can get up to $20,000. Way also notes that there are additional costs associated with battery replacement, including replacing wiring and other parts around the battery, as well as labor costs. In other news, Trump's rosy picture of the economy recalls Biden bid. Administration aims to change the narrative by Philip M. Bailey. Americans might be experiencing a bit of déjà vu after watching President Donald Trump trying to cheer up the country amid growing national anxiety about the cost of living. During the 20-minute speech from the White House, Trump plowed through a vigorous defense of his returning administration's economic record a year after promising voters better days ahead during the 2024 presidential campaign. Much as the Biden-Harris administration did in the months leading up to last year's contest, Trump argued that the economy is better than Americans tell pollsters they believe it to be, pointing to positive indicators such as rising wages. But while taking credit for those conditions, which he inherited from Biden, Trump tried to blame his predecessor for the less positive conditions that remain unchanged, such as inflation that remains above pre-pandemic levels. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it, he said in opening his televised address to the nation on December 17th. The administration and its allies are looking to reset the narrative for the 2026 midterm elections, political observers say, by filling the public's ears with its achievements. Less than 12 hours after the president's remarks, the White House touted how it made 2017 Trump tax cuts permanent and how inflation eased to 2.7% in November after creeping as high as 3% in September. President Trump was resoundingly reelected 1 year ago precisely because he, unlike Democrats, understood and acknowledged Joe Biden's economic disaster, White House spokesman Kush Desai told USA Today in a statement. Turning the page on the Biden inflation and affordability crisis has been a day one priority for the president. While much work remains, Thursday's expectation-beating inflation report is the latest proof that the administration's robust economic agenda will continue to pay off for everyday Americans. In many ways, however, Trump's address to the nation mirrored what didn't work for Biden more than 2 years ago, when Democrats and their allies insisted on measuring the economy's health using large-scale successes and comparisons to the COVID-19 recession and sky-high unemployment that greeted them at the end of Trump's first term. strategists argue that ultimately undercut Biden's and former Vice President Kamala Harris' credibility with voters during the 2024 election. Veteran Republican pollster Whit Ayers said the parallels between the two are clear, adding presidents often misjudge public perception. Biden was doing the same thing and it didn't work, and Trump is trying to do the same thing and it's not working, he said. Trump pointed to some of the very same bright spots Biden did in his addresses, such as a low jobless rate, while casting economic sore spots as an inherited problem that are Democrats' fault. Much in the same way Harris argued in a presidential debate in September, that Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Trump is in an especially tight spot ahead of the 2026 congressional elections because he campaigned on promises to end inflation, but he hasn't. And unemployment, which was 4% when Trump took office, is now up to 4.6%, a development he avoided in his speech. We're seeing recession-level job loss, and he's trying to tell folks that a sandwich is a five-star meal, and they understand they're not being respected when he does that. Andrew Bates, a former senior White House official during the Biden administration, told USA Today. Presidents have for decades tried to take credit for a booming economy while ducking criticisms of a downturn, but throughout last year's campaign, a major part of Trump's pitch for voters was to give him another say in the Oval Office was that he would pull the country out of the economic gutter. Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again to bring down the prices of all goods, he said at a rally in Montana in August. Many voters tell pollsters they think Trump isn't focused enough on that goal. Asked which issue Trump ought to be paying more attention to right now, 42% of respondents, including 40% of Republicans and 47% of white men without a college degree, said high prices in a December survey by Fox News. Republican strategist John Fury, a former top congressional aide, said that when he speaks with conservative lawmakers, there's a noticeable skittishness among rank-and-file members who hold slim majorities in both chambers of Congress. GOP candidates got their butts kicked in several different elections this year, he said, including blue states such as New Jersey and Virginia, where Democratic contenders focused on the cost of living. Republicans also underperformed in a Tennessee special election this month, in which Republican candidate won by 9 percentage points. In a congressional district, Trump won by 22 points last year. Trump is trying to get into a little shock therapy, and the speed at which he gave the speech and the kind of tone which he gave it shows the quick timeline that the Republicans are on if they don't turn those perceptions around pretty quickly. If they're not nervous, they should be. Trump has been a noticeably frustrated messenger, even in friendlier settings, such as during a campaign-style rally in rural Pennsylvania earlier in December, when he lashed out at how stupid people don't understand the wins he's secured since returning to office. Ayers, the longtime GOP pollster, said presidents often misjudge public perception about the economy and lash out, such as during the 1992 campaign, when, coming out of a recession, President George H.W. Bush bristled at criticism that his administration wasn't doing enough. Bush got very frustrated that Americans weren't feeling the same thing that his macroeconomic data were showing, Ayers said. He kept telling the American people that things are better than they think they are, and Bill Clinton defeated him in the fall with a mantra of, "It's the economy, stupid." So the more things change, the more they stay the same. Trump supporters say the administration should be given more credit for inflation reaching its lowest level since 2021. But detractors spotlight weaknesses, such as employers adding just 64,000 jobs in November, according to the most recent Bureau of Labor Statistics report. That poor performance follows an estimated loss of 105,000 jobs in October, which has led to a 4.6 unemployment rate that opponents point out is the highest unemployment rate since September 2021. And while Trump promised to halve energy costs in his first year, electricity prices are 6.9% higher than a year ago. Natural gas costs 9.1% more, and fuel oil is up 11.3%, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is almost 45 minutes after the hour. Bates, the former Biden aide, acknowledged convincing voters things are better than they seem is similar to the challenge the previous administration faced. One of the other key differences, however, is how Trump is handling his own supporters, Bates said. What really separates the two of them is when we would highlight economic successes, we would couch it by saying, I know you're hurting, and I know we have so much more to do, and I'm fighting for you and families like yours every day, he said. If you look at Trump, he is getting angry with his own supporters for understanding that they're paying more day to day. Trump is seeing his approval rating take a sharp dive. Just 36% of Americans approve of his economic stewardship, according to a December NPR Marist poll. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, a former ally, bristled at the administration's tone. In an interview with 60 Minutes, she said it's insulting for Trump to give himself an A+++++ on the economy. Affordability, or the lack of ability of Americans to afford the cost of living, is not a Democrat hoax, Greene said in an interview with PBS NewsHour. Among Democrats, there's a widespread agreement that the administration's failure to lower costs should be kept at the forefront of voters' minds and that Trump's speech reeks of political desperation. Those in the activist left ranks, however, say more populist-minded contenders running in Democratic primaries next year should keep the focus on what they will do to defend working-class Americans against corporate interests rather than the president's performance. I don't care what party you're a part of. You cannot lie to the American people about their lived realities, Osama Andrabi, a spokesman for Justice Democrats and influential progressive PAC, told USA Today. That was the failure of the Democratic Party leadership during the last administration, and it is no surprise that the Trump administration, whose agenda includes no policies that actually fight for working-class communities, is also lying straight to the American people. In news around the 50 states, Alabama from Birmingham, a Wallet Hub analysis of more than 180 cities, showed which communities are struggling the most, and 4 Alabama communities were named among the neediest, with Birmingham rating 8th, Mobile came in at 27th, Montgomery 29th, and Huntsville 149th. From Alaska, the Alaska Department of Corrections said that 18 people have died in state prisons and jails this year, matching the 2022 death count, the state's highest. From Arizona, longtime Phoenix residents know the Bikini Lounge is a hidden gem, but recently the historic Tiki Bar was thrust into the national spotlight when it earned a spot on USA Today's list of best dive bars in the country. The bar opened in '47. From Fort Smith, Arkansas, Delana Studi's path from Fort Smith Community Theater to national stages has taken another historic turn. The Cherokee Nation actor and playwright has been named a finalist for the Susan Smith Blackburn Prize, marking the first time a Native writer has been selected as a finalist. From Palm Springs, California, a local nonprofit is struggling to transport Marines from the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center 29 Palms Base to the Palm Springs International Airport following a surge in demand for its services. 29 PSP has been driving Marines from the base to the airport free of charge since its inception about a year and a half ago. The nonprofit aims to reduce costs for service members who don't have transportation for the 90-minute drive between the base and the airport. Fort Collins, Colorado, the 2026-27 school year will begin 6 days later than it usually would and still end before Memorial Day under a calendar approved by the Poudre School District. Mystic, Connecticut, HGTV listed Mystic as having some of the cutest Christmas decorations in America, citing Old Mystic Village and the annual lighted boat parade. From Newark, Delaware, another data center has been proposed in Newcastle County, less than a mile from Newark's Main Street. A proposed data center right outside of city limits was entered into the county's land use application process. Washington, D.C., residents held a funeral in honor of the penny at the Lincoln Memorial on December 20th. Miami, Florida, a resident captured a real-life Grand Theft Auto scene when the driver of a stolen Ferrari smashed into a utility pole, causing an explosion and knocking out power to the neighborhood. Deshaun Prendergast, 28, of the Bronx, New York City, was arrested in the crash. Honolulu, Hawaii. Ira Aikshab, one of the last remaining Pearl Harbor survivors, has died at the age of 105, KHON2 reported. He was 21 when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Boise, Idaho, the drivers and 5 students who were injured when 2 school buses collided on December 15th are all either home now or in stable condition. Illinois, Springfield. The Illinois Department of Public Health has updated a standing order to allow public libraries to stock and administer opioid overdose reversal agents. The revised order will make it easier for libraries to comply with new provisions of the Local Library Act. Indianapolis, Indiana, an Indigo bus crashed on December 19th, striking 2 parked vehicles, an occupied vehicle and an apartment complex building. The crash caused minor injuries to 2 adults, the driver of the bus and the passenger in the vehicle. From Des Moines, Iowa, the fire chief, John DeKipp, who announced his plans in August to retire from the largest state, made it official. After 32 years in firefighting, he will retire December 22nd. From Lenexa, Kansas. Lenexa is the biggest boom town in Kansas, having seen a 15% increase in population between 2015 and 2013. Highlight is on Georgia, Savannah. Facing the ocean in Wausau Sound is a grassy nook, buffering waves for fish seeking shelter in Georgia's marshes. Rumley Marsh Creek recently received new concrete pyramids, adding to the matrix of items scattered along the marsh bottom. The reef addition is the result of a year-long effort between the Coastal Conservation Association of Georgia, Georgia Department of Natural Resources, Coastal Resources Division, and Smyrna Ready Mix to drop 60 concrete pyramids above the low tide line where oysters like to land. The reefs are intended to improve biodiversity, water quality, and shoreline stabilization. Out of Kentucky, an Atlanta-based e-commerce fulfillment and software company is investing over $40 million to grow a North Kentucky warehouse operation. It will help upgrade and integrate existing warehouse in Hebron with automation and AI capability. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Louisiana is the state with the 10th highest grocery bill in the country, with residents spending a weekly average of $282.95 on groceries. Augusta, Maine. Transgender students in Maine public schools this year faced more than twice the threats, violence, and bullying of their peers, according to new state data. They were also more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide. Ocean City, Maryland. Ready for a polar plunge? The Atlantic General Hospital Foundation will hold its 32nd annual Penguin Swim at noon January 1st on the beach at the Princess Royale Oceanfront Hotel. Worcester, Massachusetts. A fund created by the Worcester Regional Chamber of Commerce last year has collected over $3 million. Town, Michigan. A vacant seat in the Michigan Senate's 35th district is up for grabs in a closely watched upcoming special election where a winner could change the power dynamic in the legislature. Voters in the 35th district will weigh in on February 3rd, 2026, on Democratic and Republican primaries in a special election called by Governor Gretchen Whitmer. There are 38 seats in the Michigan Senate. Democrats currently hold 19 seats, while Republicans hold 18 seats. From Baynard, Minnesota, a city just a short drive away from hundreds of lakes in central Minnesota, is one of the country's best destinations for ice fishing, according to Fishing Booker, a website that helps people find fish and book fishing trips. Brainerd, situated along the Mississippi River, is a beloved vacation spot with a reputation built around its vast chain of lakes. From Jackson, Mississippi, travelers will soon have a new nonstop option to the Sunshine State. The Jackson Municipal Airport Authority announced American Airlines will launch a weekly nonstop flight from Jackson Medgar Wiley Evers International to Miami International Airport on March 14th. Jewish groups across the state in Montana lit 8 menorahs in the Capitol Rotunda in Helena. From, Fargo, North Dakota. The Fargo Salvation Army announced that 4 gold coins were dropped in red kettles around the city. The coins have a combined value of around $8,300, according to the news outlet. Poughkeepsie, New York. A federal law banning new anchorages for barges traveling the Hudson was signed by President Donald Trump. The signing comes after a 3-year battle waged by environmental groups and federal lawmakers from the Hudson Valley, highlighting the potential for an oil or gas spill contaminating a waterway that provides drinking water to 100,000 people. From Dexter, New Mexico, Bruce Bailey, the band director at Dexter Middle School, will join 330 band directors from around the country to march in the Rose Parade on New Year's Day. The lounge in Old Salt at Lamey's Inn, Hampton, New Hampshire, is back open following an October fire that caused significant water damage. From Reno, Nevada, kindergarten students will no longer ease into school after the Washoe County School District eliminated a long-standing policy of starting its youngest students a week after everyone else. The district said in a new Nevada Department of Education regulation mandates the kindergarten start dates align with the other grades starting the next school year. In Salem, Oregon, the city is suing Ravi Kunke and his former restaurant business for failing to pay months of rent for his downtown Rudy's Steakhouse, Rudy's Butcher Shop, and event space. In Erie, Pennsylvania, residents will see the first property tax increase in 6 years. From Rhode Island, in Newport, the City Council has voted to shorten the application window for residents to apply for the discounted property tax. Columbia, South Carolina, the Department of Public Safety advises drivers the warning period for violation of the state's hands-free driving law ends early next year. The state's ban on using or holding a cell phone while driving took effect on September 1st. From Pierre, South Dakota, the success rate for keeping truancy cases out of court is the lowest it's been in a decade, according to an annual report. The Juvenile Justice Reinvestment Oversight Council is a group of representatives from law enforcement, schools, the legislature, social services, and the court system. It's responsible for tracking South Dakota's effort to reduce the number of children in custody. A Wilson County School Board member was charged with indecent exposure on December 16th, and he's resigned amid additional charges. In Travis County, Texas, officials have determined that 11 registered voters in Travis County flagged as potential non-citizens actually provided proof of citizenship while obtaining a driver's license. Let's see, what else do we have here? Just finishing up. And Charleston, West Virginia, after a series of accidents the past week, the West Virginia Division of Highways is reminding motorists to exercise caution while driving. Franklin Mayor John Nelson in Wisconsin is under investigation by West Allis Police for possible misconduct in public office. And finally, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, the city announced the collection of the stormwater fee will be delayed until April to ensure accurate billing. Well, not an awful lot in the paper today because of the holiday, but you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from USA Today for December 24th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been Dasha.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555.
Hello, this is Marian Heatherly, Community Engagement Coordinator for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes as another year comes to a close. We've been reflecting on what we've accomplished in 2025 and what needs to be done in the new year, and you, our listeners, are at the heart of everything. One of our most important goals in 2026 is to sign up new listeners. More than 100,000 people across the Western New York, Greater Rochester, Southern Ontario region with vision loss, limited mobility, learning disabilities, or other reading challenges would benefit from our programming, but we only know a fraction of them because they're listening online. We love that you're using the service. Could you please take a moment now to let us know you're listening online by calling 716-821-5555 extension 5 and leaving a message, or just send us a quick email to read@nfradioreading.org. It's very important for funding applications and other activities to have an accurate count of listeners. We'd also appreciate listeners' help spreading.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Dan Arth. Sports, Monday Night Football winners and losers. The NFL playoff-bound San Francisco 49ers are getting hot at the right time. The 49ers got by the Indianapolis Colts 48-27 on Monday, December 22nd, to win their fifth consecutive game. Conversely, the Colts have now lost 5 games in a row. Quarterback Brock Purdy and the 49ers scored on their first 4 drives of the game and carried their momentum into the second half against the defenseless Colts team, now 8-7. Brock Purdy tossed a career-best 5 touchdown passes. Colts counterpart Phillip Rivers played admirably, but it wasn't enough to defeat the red-hot 49ers 11-4. The winners and losers from the interconference matchup on Monday Night Football. Winners, career night for Brock Purdy. The 49ers quarterback is playing well. Purdy threw for 295 yards and a career-high 5 touchdown passes in the win. Purdy completed 25 of his 35 passes. He had 1 inaccurate ball that he threw a little high to wide receiver Kendrick Bourne that was picked off by Colts safety Cam Bynum. Overall, Purdy was efficient all game. He had 151 passing yards and 3 touchdown passes in the first half alone. The 49ers haven't punted in the entire month of December. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, winners. The 49ers offense continues to revolve around their 2 star playmakers. Christian McCaffrey is the engine to the 49ers offense. The running back had 27 touches, 146 yards from scrimmage, and 2 touchdowns. Greg Kittle tallied 7 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. Kittle injured his ankle in the second half. The 49ers initially ruled him questionable to return, but he never made it back into the game. San Francisco has a chance to clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC if it wins its next 2 games, but the 49ers can't afford to lose Kittle or McCaffrey. D. Winters takes one to pay dirt. D. Winters got his first career interception when he stepped in from a pass intended for tight end Tyler Warren. The 49ers linebacker caught the football and returned it 74 yards to the house. The pick 6 sealed the win for San Francisco. Holiday gift for Kendrick Bourne. Bourne earned his $500,000 receiving yards bonus Monday night. A nice holiday bonus for the wideout who has had a nice season with San Francisco. Phillip Rivers, impressive in second start back. Anything Phillip Rivers does at this point in his NFL career is a win. It's hard to call the 44-year-old a loser playing in his second football game after a 5-year hiatus. With his family watching in a suite, Rivers carved the 49ers up during Indy's opening series. Rivers completed 5 of 7 passes for 73 yards on the Colts' 9-play, 72-yard touchdown drive for the game. Rivers completed 23 of 35 passes for 277 yards to go with 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. It was the first time Rivers passed for over 275 yards since December 6, 2020. Rivers still has good accuracy and anticipation. Rivers' familiarity with head coach Sean Steichen's offense is evident. Bills, Jaguars, Chargers. The Buffalo Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Los Angeles Chargers each clinched an AFC playoff berth because of San Francisco's win over Indianapolis. The Colts remain in contention for an AFC wild card. California NFL teams, all three NFL teams in the Golden State, the 49ers, LA Rams, and Chargers, have clinched a playoff spot. Losers, defense. There was little resistance from either defense, especially in the first half of Monday night's game. Both offenses combined for 41 points, 444 yards, and 27 first downs in the first half. The 49ers averaged 7.6 yards per play. Indianapolis averaged 6.5 yards per play. The defensive units played a little better in the second half. Niners defensive tackle Alfred Collins had a strip sack in the fourth quarter that ruined a Colts drive. Colts safety Cam Bynum had an interception. San Francisco linebacker D. Winters had a pick six. Sauce Gardner-Less, Colts defense. The Colts certainly missed cornerback Sauce Gardner. The 49ers scored on their first 4 series, including 3 touchdown drives. San Francisco scored on 7 total drives, gained 440 yards on a helpless Colts defense. The 49ers averaged 6.7 yards per play and didn't punt once. Amir Abdullah. The Colts' Amir Abdullah fumbled on his first kickoff return and gave San Francisco ideal field position at Indy's 26-yard line. The 49ers then capitalized with a TD 5 play later to take a 14-7 first quarter lead. USA Today Life article, entertainment. Storyteller Povich returns as a podcaster. New York. Maury Povich has the chills. Though a star in his own right and a talk show icon to generations of daytime TV viewers, Povich doesn't view himself as a celebrity. But since launching his On Par podcast in 2025, he's realizing just how many people Maury the show and Maury the man has impacted. What surprised me more than anything else was that so many people knew who I was. I never realized that. Povich, 86, tells USA Today. I would interview hip-hop artists, and the next thing I know, I'm in their lyrics. I interviewed actors who watch the show, athletes who watch the show in the clubhouse and won't come to practice till they find out who the father is. On this particular day, Povich is pinching himself after a run-in with an unexpected fan, hip-hop mogul 50 Cent. I'm walking down the aisle, and all of a sudden this guy wants to give me a big hug. It's 50 Cent. And I'm going, "Are you kidding?" Povich says, "I just never believed that my name or my personality extended so far." After the chance encounter at a taping of Sherry Shepherd's daytime talk show, Povich is adding the multi-finate to his list of must-have guests for the podcast, joining wish list stars like Jay-Z, Shaquille O'Neal, and perhaps reaching for the stars a Cardi B, Nicki Minaj joint interview to settle their differences. On Par, which launched season 2 in early December, has given Povich the chance to do something that years of talk show hosting never allowed: talk about himself. While he's been known, most fans haven't gotten to see the real him. Conversing with celebrity guests, everyone from William H. Macy and Today Show host Craig Melvin to NBA All-Star Andre Drummond, has opened that door. For the first time in 6 decades of being in this business, I can talk about myself. I've never been able to do that, Povich says. And in podcasts, you can talk about things that you went through, your experiences, and compare them with the experiences of my guests. His wife of 4 decades, veteran newswoman Connie Chung, was the first guest on the podcast, yet Povich interviewed her in somewhat begrudgingly. "I didn't want her on, but I was overruled," he said. His reasoning: because you never know what she's going to say. That's the way we've lived our life for 41 years. You just never know what she's going to do or say. So I'm completely surprised. Povich says nobody ever heard of the word podcast during his earlier career years as a TV journalist doing local news around the country before landing his Maury precursor tabloid news magazine, A Current Affair. I started in journalism and news, and so my wife was saying, nobody knows about the 25 years before you started determining the paternity of every kid in the country. So why don't you go back and show people you've got your chops and you can interview people from all facets of life? He says her main piece of advice was, don't make me look like an idiot. Within the tough love, there's a lot of love for the two newsmakers who've been married since 1984. She's been my go-to personality all these years. I've always thought of myself as Mr. Chung, and I still do. He says, she was a big star way before I ever was, and I don't mind. Maury Memes podcast show, Enduring Legacy. In the next phase of his career, Povich has become something of a social media star, joining in on viral TikTok trends, racking up new fans who are discovering clips from Maury and finding original viewers still yelling, "You are not the father," to trending audio moments from the talk show. I've always believed that I was nothing more than an extension of my audience. I would ask the same questions my audience would if they had the chance. I really kind of downplayed ego stuff. I've seen it so many times working, for instance, co-anchoring with people who had all these big egos. My wife and I like to call it big shot-itis, and we kind of stayed away from that all our lives. It boils down to quality, Povich says. All my life, the main thread has been being a storyteller, says Povich, who received a Lifetime Achievement Award at the 50th Daytime Emmy Creative Arts and Lifestyle Awards in 2023. His storytelling began to have a flair for the dramatics of daytime TV during the Maury Povich Show era in its lifespan from 1991 to 2022. Povich says, one of the great things about the show, beyond the fact that I was the longest running daytime talk show host in history, is that nobody did it better in terms of DNA and lie detector tests. A lot of people have tried, but I don't think that any show did it better than we did, he says. He recalls shocks, such as finding that a pregnant guest twins each belonged to two different fathers, but he thinks fondly of a dad who rejoined the mother of his child, got married, had more kids, and stayed together. Povich recalls criticism from media critics that he was exploiting show guests. I always said, I don't think I'm exploiting my guests. I mean, I'm trying to get a guy who denies that they're the father of this child, and I prove that they are the father, into the life of this child, because that child is going to have a better chance at life with two parents than one. And I hang my hat on what I've done. I believe that's true. And because I was on the air so long, I could bring these families back 20 years later and find out that this guy did get into the life of the child. Povich's barometer for success has evolved over time. Now it's that I'm upright and that I can walk around, I can play golf, and I can still think on my 2 feet. But he recalls an earlier era, before the fame. I started when I was 16 years old as an assistant producer to the Washington Senators baseball broadcaster in TV and radio. And then I got into the business after college. I said, look, if I can stay in this business till I'm 50, I'll consider myself a success, he says. And that was 35 years that I lasted. Now, 36 years later, I'm still trying to handle this. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 11:45. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Sports. NFL Power Rankings. Rams don't fall after loss. 49ers leap into the top 5. NFL power rankings entering the 2025 season's Week 17. Previous rank is in parentheses. Number 1, Los Angeles Rams. Previous ranking, number 1. We know they just lost their second defeat in 4 games. We know they've fallen from the NFC's projected number 1 playoff seed to its 6th in a matter of days. We know they just fired their special teams coordinator, perhaps an overdue move given how that phase of the game has legitimately cost LA 3 more wins this season. Put all that aside, the Rams still have the presumptive MVP in Matthew Stafford, a head coach as good or better than any in the league, and a roster that can win anywhere in any variety of games. Number 2, Seattle Seahawks. Previous ranking, 2. We know they just won, running their heater to 5 games. We know they've risen from the NFC's projected number 5 playoff seed to its 1st. We know they rarely lose playoff games in Seattle. But admirable as his career turnaround has been, we need to see quarterback Sam Darnold prove he can win on the big stage the way Stafford finally did after he joined the Rams. Number 3 in the power rankings, Jacksonville Jaguars, previous ranking 8. They've won 6 in a row, but quarterback Trevor Lawrence has truly been in the zone over his past 4 games, with a 120.8 passer rating during that stretch, while accounting for 14 TDs. The defense has also added another 10 takeaways in those 4 recent victories. Any number of teams could emerge from a muddled AFC field, but after a decisive win in Denver, the Jags are certainly playing as well as anyone in the conference right now. Number 4, San Francisco 49ers. Previous ranking 9. Considering they haven't needed punter Thomas Morstead this month, who needs to worry about whatever their defensive issues are, the Niners are 2 wins from securing the number 1 NFC seed, which launched them into the Super Bowl in 2019 and 2023. Number 5 power ranking, New England Patriots, previous ranking 6th. Quarterback Drake May had his first 300-yard passing game, 380 yards total, actually, Sunday, December 21st, which included a career-high 31 completions. Definitely feels like the right time to put more on his plate. Number 6 in the power rankings, Denver Broncos, previous ranking 3. Basically the AFC's version of Seattle right now. A lot to like about a team that generally seems to be ahead of schedule. But how much do you trust quarterback Bo Nix and this offense in high leverage situations? Power ranking number 7, Houston Texans, previous ranking 4. They escaped with a win, but better learn a lesson from what was near total letdown against the lowly Raiders. Buffalo Bills, power ranking 8, previous ranking 5. Buffalo escaped with a win, but struggling against the Browns while trying to manage quarterback Josh Allen's foot injury is something to monitor, even as the stars seem to be aligning elsewhere for this crew. Power ranking 9, Chicago Bears, previous ranking 10th. The season has been an unqualified success for the presumptive NFC North champions, but getting blown out at Soldier Field in the playoffs seems as likely, perhaps more likely, as a Super Bowl run for a team that constantly seems to be on a high wire. Power ranking number 10, Los Angeles Chargers, previous ranking 11. Quarterback Justin Herbert's toughness and greatness have perhaps obscured the fact that since the Bolts' Week 12 bye, they have not allowed 20 points to any of the opponents they vanquished on their 4-game winning streak. Extend it to 6, and LA takes the AFC West. Power ranking 11, Philadelphia Eagles, previous ranking 12. At a time when it can't seem to execute the tush-push, the offense oddly seems to be finding a groove otherwise, averaging 30 points and 386 yards, albeit against Vegas and Washington over the past 2 weeks on the way to the NFC East crown. Power ranking number 12, Green Bay Packers, previous ranking 7. Hell of a time to have their 3 most important players, defensive end Micah Parsons, quarterback Jordan Love, and running back Josh Jacobs, hurt. Power ranking number 13, Pittsburgh Steelers, previous ranking 14. Has quarterback Aaron Rodgers found the fountain of early middle age? He has averaged 258 yards with a 106.4 passer rating on Pittsburgh's 3-game hot streak, which has also seen the team's running game kick into high gear. Maybe the Steelers' latest just above 500 season won't actually end with a one-and-done postseason. Power ranking 14, Detroit Lions, previous ranking 13. Their first losing streak since 2022 could also lead to their first playoff absence since 2022. Power ranking 15, Baltimore Ravens, previous ranking 15. Maybe they'd be more successful if they went into fourth quarters trailing rather than trying to protect leads. Power ranking 16, Carolina Panthers, previous ranking 17th. Crazy stat, quarterback Bryce Young has 14 NFL wins on his resume, and all but 2 have required a game-winning drive after the third quarter. Power ranking 17, Atlanta Falcons, previous ranking 23rd. As they settle into a late-season groove with quarterback Kirk Cousins, it's worth wondering if he's actually a gift they will or should stick with going into 2026. Power ranking 18, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, previous ranking 16th. They keep their NFC South throne by winning their next 2 games. If only they'd won more than 1 game since October. Power ranking 19, Indianapolis Colts, previous ranking 18. Might be time to beg Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis to come out of retirement, too. Power ranking 20, Minnesota Vikings, previous ranking 19th. Justin Jefferson's professionalism in the midst of a season in which many other elite wideouts would have gone to pieces has been beyond admirable. Power ranking 21, Dallas Cowboys, previous ranking 20. No Cowboy has ever led the league in passing yards. Dak Prescott could be the first, so something to play for over the next 2 weeks. Power ranking 22, Cincinnati Bengals, previous ranking 27. Why pay wide receiver T. Higgins and skew the salary cap so heavily toward the offense, only to target him half as frequently as Jamar Chase? Power ranking 23, New Orleans Saints, previous ranking 24. Shaw it, which is pretty much reason enough to give rookie quarterback Tyler Shaw a full season to prove he could be the long-term starter here. He certainly offered a lot of encouraging signs over the past 6 months for the Saints. Power ranking 24, Tennessee Titans, previous ranking 30. With his first 3-game string of 100-yard rushing yards, running back Tony Pollard is on his way to a 4th consecutive 1,000-yard season, though he's never cracked 1,100 yards. Power ranking 25, Arizona Cardinals, previous ranking 25. Speaking of 1,100-yard rushers, they haven't had one since David Johnson in 2016. The Cards will be fortunate to have a 400-yard rusher in 2025. Power ranking 26, Kansas City Chiefs. Previous ranking 21. Tight end Travis Kelce had 1 6-yard catch in Sunday's debacle in Nashville, but it was enough to give him his 12th consecutive season with at least 800 receiving yards, matching a record set by the legendary Jerry Rice. Power ranking 27, Miami Dolphins, previously 22. They looked good Sunday without Tua Tagovailoa in the starting lineup, but only because of their throwback uniforms. Power ranking 28, Washington Commanders, previously 26. Quarterback Jeff Driscoll could be under the Christmas tree for Thursday's game against Dallas. Been that kind of a season in old D.C. Power ranking 29, Cleveland Browns, previously 31, bagging a Steelers quarterback, even if, maybe especially if, its old friend Mason Rudolph could be an especially satisfying way for defensive end Myles Garrett to set the single-season sack record. Power ranking 30, New York Giants, previous ranking 28. Avoiding a catastrophic win for a second straight week could be especially challenging for a team eyeing the number one pick of the 2026 draft Sunday in Sin City. Power ranking 31, Las Vegas Raiders, previously 32. Avoiding a catastrophic win for a second straight week could be especially challenging for a team eyeing the number one pick of the 2026 draft Sunday in Sin City. And finally, power ranking 32, New York Jets, previously 29. Trust that process, even if it means losing 3 in a row by an average of 25 points. From USA Today, entertainment section, movies, Dust Bunny aims to sweep trauma for kids of the 80s. By Brian Truitt. Confess to Sigourney Weaver that you first saw Alien at the age of 7, and she offers you the best response. You're welcome, the sci-fi icon says with a smile. I have met smaller children, which astonishes me. I look at the parent. Have you seen it? And now you're sending this baby? It's amazing to me. Weaver was a pop culture stalwart in the late 70s and early 80s when the Alien films, her gem Ghostbusters, and other kid-curious scary movies such as Gremlins sent a generation scrambling to their parents to beg to see them, or if they were rated R-rated, to sneak a peek by any means necessary. The actress's newest project is of a similar ilk. Director Brian Fuller's family horror adventure, Dust Bunny, in theaters, centers on a 10-year-old girl named Aurora, Sophie Sloan, with a monster under her bed that she believes ate her foster parents. Her neighbor, Mads Mikkelsen, is a hitman, so she hires him to take out the ginormous problem in her room. The situation gets more complex with the addition of a bunch of oddball assassins trying to murder the neighbor, plus other mysterious and shady types, including his former associate, Laverne Weaver. Back in the day, Weaver starred in movies that blew children's minds, and now, watching Dust Bunny, I feel like that kid and I want to have that experience. I want to believe in these things, she says. This was such an ambitious, original, enchanting story about a girl who is in bad trouble, and she somehow empowers herself and keeps taking the next step to get what she needs. Dust Bunny marks the first film as a director for Fuller, who created TV's Pushin' Daisies and Hannibal. He had 80s classics in mind making his movie when editing Dust Bunny. Fuller made it the same runtime as Gremlins, and although it's rated R for, quote, some violence, youngsters and parents still are his primary audience. I love all those films that spawned the PG-13 rating because they were too traumatic as PG movies, says Fuller, who's nominated for Best First Feature for Dust Bunny at the Independent Spirit Awards in February. Traumatizing kids with fiction is a great way to prepare them for real traumas and give them some coping mechanisms to handle those things when they come their way unexpectedly. This movie is for traumatized kids and for adults who have traumatized kids in their hearts. Fuller first developed Dust Bunny to be an episode for Amazing Stories, Steven Spielberg's relaunch of his 80s anthology series for Apple TV in 2020. Fuller recalls sitting at his boardroom table with the sled Rosebud from Citizen Kane and massive models of his yacht while figuring out who the sensual little girl is. Every character is a horcrux that you chip off a bit of your soul and you put that in your barometer, how they would react in situations, and also your rationalizations of some of their more extreme actions, Fuller says. And while turning it into a film, Fuller began to put his own experience and fears as a child into the narrative. Writing Aurora did help little me and putting people in her life that I wish I had had. Fuller hopes Dust Bunny is a conversation starter for people to help kids move through lives that may be challenging in their own way, but also help heal their inner child. He says, we never lose that stuff. It's always present with us. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Sports. Humbug. Duo expect fans to fund stadiums, by Nancy Armour. Coal is overrated. Nothing kills the holiday spirit quite like giving a middle finger to your loyal fans. The Kansas City Chiefs announced Monday, December 22nd, that they are abandoning the stadium they've called home for more than 50 years, taking their ball and moving because Missouri residents wouldn't foot the bill for major renovations at Arrowhead Stadium. This 5 days after the Chicago Bears threatened to move to Northwest Indiana if Illinois taxpayers won't give them money. Check that. More money? Since the state is still paying for the renovation of Soldier Field more than 20 years ago. Our fans deserve a world-class stadium. Our players and coaches deserve a venue that matches the championship standard they strive for every day. Bears president Kevin Warren wrote in an open letter to fans. No one is saying the Chiefs and Bears don't deserve first-class facilities, or even saying they can't have new or newly renovated stadiums. If these teams want state-of-the-art playgrounds, they should get them, but they should be paying for them themselves, every last cent of the cost for construction and infrastructure. Sports stadiums, arenas rarely deliver on promised benefits. Now, the teams and the politicians who sign off on public funds for these Taj Mahals will tell you what a good deal it is for taxpayers, how these projects will create jobs, generate revenue, make the area a tourist destination, blah, blah, blah. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly trotted out all those economic cliches in making the announcement Monday. With this new stadium, we're creating thousands of jobs, bringing in tourists from around the world, attracting young people, she said. Numerous studies over the years, however, have found this just is not true. The economic benefits are almost always less than promised or projected. The cost to taxpayers almost always are greater than expected or planned. Economic research continues to demonstrate that stadiums remain poor public investments. Authors of a review of public funding for stadiums wrote in a January 2023 paper, especially when the team owners can afford to write these checks themselves. Charity for billionaires, all part of the new stadium playbook. The Hunt family, owner of the Kansas City Chiefs, is worth $25 billion, according to Forbes, and the franchise was valued at more than $6 billion in August. Yet Kansas taxpayers will pay up to 60% of the costs of the $3 billion stadium. The McCaskies are known to be among the least wealthy NFL owners, their fortune tied mostly to the Bears. Still, the team is valued at more than $8 billion, according to Forbes. The Bears at least say they will cover the bulk of the cost for their proposed $5 billion stadium, but they want $855 million in public money for infrastructure, things like roads, sewers, and changes to a commuter rail line. Again, both of these teams are worth billions, as is the NFL, which offers 9-figure loans for stadiums projects. If the Chiefs and Bears want new stadiums and the riches that come with them, they should pay every cost associated with them. Instead, they want fans who already shell out for tickets, parking, concessions, and merch to give them more. This isn't new, of course. The public has been building stadiums for sports teams for decades. But at a time when it's getting harder and harder for most Americans to put food on the table and keep the lights on, the Bears and Chiefs demanding that others foot their bills isn't just greedy, it's insensitive. Teams like to say their fans are the lifeblood of their organizations. After the Bears staged an epic comeback to beat the Green Bay Packers on Saturday night, both Coach Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams gave fans some of the credit. Yet it's not enough. These teams want taxpayers, many of whom are their fans, to give them even more, and they have no problem shaking them down like a mob boss to get it. You really think the Chiefs would be moving to Kansas had Missouri voters not rejected a sales tax in April 2024 that would have paid for renovations at Arrowhead and a new Kansas City Royal Stadium? You really think the Bears would be considering a move to the suburbs, let alone across state lines, if they could have gotten public land near Soldier Field? If you do, I've got a stadium to sell you. This is supposed to be the season of giving. For the Chiefs, the Bears, and so many other teams, it's a one-way exchange. USA Today. Television. The year in late night TV landscape changed forever in 2025. By Kelly Lawler. Once upon a time, the chuckle-heavy world of late-night TV was a Hollywood fairy tale. Now it's a nightmare, and it all may soon be coming to an end. In 2025, we saw the biggest tumult in the world of late-night TV since Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien were at odds back in 2010, a dust-up that seems like an amusement kerfuffle these days. In July, CBS announced that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert would end in May of 2026, a cancellation of a late-night institution that many thought was the first death knell for the genre. And then, only 2 months later, ABC and its parent company Disney temporarily pulled Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air after Kimmel was criticized by the Federal Communications Commission chairman appointed by President Donald Trump, restoring Kimmel only after a global uproar. Going into 2026, the future of an entire genre of television, one with more than a half century of history and influence on popular and everyday culture, is in question. Will late-night TV survive? If we've learned anything from Kimmel and Colbert's experiences in 2025, don't count these guys out yet. The big year in late-night TV, Colbert and Kimmel. 2025 has been a heck of a year, but even amid so much chaos, the fates of two late-night comedians were still some of the most talked about moments these past 12 months. On a July 17 episode of The Late Show, Colbert announced that CBS was canceling the entire series for good after the 2025-2026 season, its 11th overall. This is all just going away, the comedian 61 told a shocked audience. The analysis and commentary on the cancellation came immediately. CBS's parent company, Paramount, said it was all about math. This is purely a financial decision against a challenging backdrop in late night. It is not related in any way to the show's performance, content, or other matters happening at Paramount. Paramount and CBS executives said at the time those other matters were a merger with Skydance Media, which required regulatory approval from the Trump administration, a frequent target of Colbert's criticism. The merger has since gone through, and now, months later, the new Paramount Skydance is seeking a hostile takeover of Warner Brothers Discovery. But the collision of politics and late night truly came to a massive head in September, after Kimmel made comments about the reaction of those on the right to the death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Kimmel's comments were swiftly criticized by many Republicans, including FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, who said on a podcast, "This is a very, very serious issue right now for Disney. We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Soon after, Kimmel was yanked from affiliates owned by Sinclair Broadcasting and Nexstar Media, the latter also involved in a merger and suspended indefinitely by ABC. The outrage from fellow comedians, free speech advocates, Hollywood politicians on the left and the right, and talking heads all over the world was swift. When Disney allowed Kimmel back on the air less than a week later, it was to an audience of 6.26 million, his highest viewership in a decade. Did 2025 spell the end of late-night TV as we know it? Since Kimmel's watershed moment in late September, late-night TV has been quiet. Well, as quiet as can be for a type of TV show known for silly games and outrageous viral videos. All of the hosts, Kimmel, Colbert, as well as NBC's Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon, and HBO's John Oliver and Comedy Central's Jon Stewart, continue to criticize and bash Trump as they see fit. On December 9th, Kimmel's contract with ABC was renewed through 2027, and every day, well, Mondays through Thursdays, excluding hiatuses and holidays, they keep putting out new shows. For years, broadcast late-night TV comedians have seen declining audiences, leaned more toward political humor over cultural takes, and struggled to adapt to a modern media landscape where streaming services, YouTube and TikTok, compete with traditional TV viewing. CBS recently ended its 12:30 a.m. series comedy panel show After Midnight when host Taylor Tomlinson decided to leave in favor of her stand-up career. Meyers' show recently axed its live in-studio band as a cost-cutting measure. Tonight's show went from 5 nights a week to 4 in 2024, joining the other late-night shows. Conan O'Brien, who very briefly inherited the Tonight Show throne in 2009 and 2010, has moved from decades of traditional late-night TV on NBC and later TBS to podcasting, itself a huge media market. Samantha Bee's TBS talk show also was canceled back in July 2022. But what if late-night TV is more relevant than ever? If late-night TV was really on the outs, we wouldn't be looking to the likes of Kimmel, Colbert, Meyers, and Fallon during moments such as Kirk's death or the recent deaths of Hollywood icon Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle Singer Reiner. But it was on Kimmel's show December 15th where former First Lady Michelle Obama processed her grief about the murdered couple, whom she knew personally. It was Kimmel who was able to publicly react to Trump's wildly admonished remarks about the director's death. It's so hateful and vile. When I first saw it, I thought it was fake, Kimmel said, of Trump's comments about Reiner, adding, I know from my personal interactions with Rob Reiner that he would want us to keep pointing out the loathsome atrocities that continue to ooze out of this sick and irresponsible man's mouth, and so we're going to do that over and over again until the rest of us wake up. It is not just tragedy that brings out attention to these comedians after 11 p.m. When Taylor Swift, the biggest superstar we have on this planet at the moment, released her latest album, The Life of a Showgirl, in October, she made sure to stop by both Fallon and Meyers' desks. Upon the release of her new documentary on Disney+, she just dropped by Colbert's studio December 10th. She has hundreds of millions of social media followers she can speak to directly, podcasts she can join, and journalists to grant time with, and yet she still takes her work to late-night TV to promote. There are a few million viewers of the late-night shows on air and the next day online, sure, but perhaps what is making late-night remain relevant for the likes of Swift and the other A-listers who drop by weekly is something more ephemeral. There is something sweet and earnest about sitting on the couch with a funny man, almost always a man, who can make you look good and occasionally get some truths. There's something nostalgic and comforting about the genre, and that might be all it needs to endure. Once upon a time, Johnny Carson lulled America to sleep with wit and panache every night from the stage of The Tonight Show on NBC, watched by millions and respected by nearly all. Hosting from 1962 to 1992, Carson's peak average ratings were more than triple the current late-night hosts combined, and his farewell episode drew 50 million viewers. He essentially was popular culture, making careers of comedians with an invite to his couch and talking America through our biggest historic moments. Those days decidedly are over. But perhaps when Colbert signs off in 2026, he won't trigger a domino effect of doom for his late-night compatriots. Instead, maybe these comedians, all of whom are smart innovators, funny and exciting enough to get and keep the jobs in the first place, will come up with something new to bolster their shows. Maybe Colbert's next act will be his best one yet. Maybe Kimmel and Trump will get in an even more jaw-dropping war of words, because we may not watch late-night comedians the way we used to, but we're clearly not done with them yet. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Sports. NBA gifts hoop fans 5 games on Christmas by Mark Giannotto. Christmas in the NBA isn't just a holiday about gifts. It's a time when the entire league can look around and take stock. This, the biggest NBA fans often say, is often when the crux of the season really begins, when the contenders and pretenders have had a couple of months to sift through the new pieces on their roster and figure out what works best. This season, in the aftermath of the NBA Cup, it feels especially true. The NBA's annual Christmas Day showcase is almost here, and nearly all of the games on the schedule have lined up well for basketball fans hoping to see the best players and teams in the league. It starts with a Madison Square Garden matchup between the 2 preseason favorites in the Eastern Conference, and then the defending NBA champions get a chance of revenge against Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs. Steph Curry will be action with the Golden State Warriors facing Cooper Flagg in his first NBA Christmas appearance, while Kevin Durant plays his first Christmas game with the Houston Rockets against Luka Doncic. LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers. The fun all wraps up with a nightcap featuring Nikola Jokic and Anthony Edwards. Buckle up and get ready for a full day of NBA action. Cleveland Cavaliers at New York Knicks. Time noon, ABC and ESPN. The Knicks and Cavaliers remain the 2 favorites to win the Eastern Conference. Cleveland has dealt with a slew of injuries early on and is hovering around 500 after racing to the best record in the East last season. But Donovan Mitchell is still one of the league's leading scorers. The Knicks have lost just twice in the past month. They are coming off an NBA Cup championship win over the San Antonio Spurs and a 47-point performance by star Jalen Brunson on December 21st. The game will also be shown via an alternative Deck the Halls broadcast on ESPN2 with an animated special featuring Disney characters. Time, 2:30 p.m., San Antonio Spurs at Oklahoma City Thunder. TV, ABC, and ESPN. The defending NBA champions take on one of the 3 teams to actually beat them already this season, and what will be the 2 teams' second game in 3 days and third meeting in less than 2 weeks. Wembanyama has picked up where he left off, averaging a double-double and 2.5 blocks per game, despite a minute restriction since returning from injury. A minute's restriction. The Thunder lost twice in 3 games this month after starting the season 24-1. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander ranks second in the NBA in scoring, and Oklahoma City has the league's best defense. Don't look now, but the Spurs entered this back-to-back matchups trailing only the Thunder in second place in the Western Conference standings. Time, 5 p.m. Dallas Mavericks versus Golden State Warriors. TV, ABC, and ESPN. Flagg's first Christmas appearance in the NBA arrives right as he's playing the best basketball of his rookie season for the Mavericks, who have improved with the return of Anthony Davis to the lineup following a rough start. It hasn't been as smooth for the Warriors with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green as it was after the trade deadline last season. But Curry is playing well since he recently returned from injury, and there's likely to still be some emotions with Dallas guard Klay Thompson playing at Golden State over the holidays again. Time, 8 p.m. Houston Rockets at Los Angeles Lakers. Durant and James are playing against one another on Christmas for the fifth time in their NBA careers, and each has plenty of help this time around. Luka Doncic is leading the NBA in scoring, though his status for the game is up in the air after he exited Saturday's game against the Clippers early with a leg contusion. Alperen Sengun, meanwhile, continues to be a force inside for Houston, which is the best rebounding team in the league this season. Time 10:30 p.m., Minnesota Timberwolves at Denver Nuggets. Jokic is averaging a triple-double for the season, and Edwards is on pace to set new career highs in scoring and three-point shooting. They will provide plenty of star power to close out Christmas in the NBA. As two of the top Western Conference contenders behind the Thunder meet again, both teams have lost just twice since the start of December. USA Today Sports. College women's volleyball. Texas A&M sets sights on defending title with repeat. By Megan L. Hall. Kansas City, Missouri. What's next for Texas A&M volleyball after winning its first title by defeating Kentucky? Coach Jamie Morrison is already talking repeat. Over the past month, the third-year head coach has said again and again that his Aggies would be a force to be reckoned with now and into the future. It's just the beginning of what our program's going to do, Morrison said. There was a small flame going of interest in our sport. It wasn't small. It was a pretty big one. I think we just threw a whole 13 gallons of gasoline on it. The coach added after Texas A&M swept number one Pitt in the national semifinals. Morrison believes, though, the roster might look different. The Aggies can make multiple Final Four runs and win more championships along the way. He believes Texas A&M can recruit and develop talent and has plenty of resources to get the job done. Morrison believed it before he won Coach of the Year honors, before he and his team pulled off back-to-back sweeps during the Final Four, before Texas A&M beat the Kentucky Wildcats on Sunday, December 21st. It was also before three of his four players who earned All-American honors this season made the NCAA All-Tournament team. They all bought into the way it was going to be, how we were going to work, how we were going to act as teammates, how we were going to care and love each other. Those things weren't easy, Morrison said about his team after winning it all. There was a group of them here from the beginning that said, I want to be a part of this. I want to build this program. For all of them, I don't think they were envisioning a national championship by the time they were done. I think when we were selling what we were doing, it was building something that could come back to in the future and be really, really proud they helped build. With the Aggies' first championship, Morrison lived up to his vision and fulfilled the promise he made to his players. 9 of those players, including starting setter Maddie Walk opposite Logan Lednicki, Ibira Ava Underwood, and middle blocker Efani Kasakpala, are seniors and will be leaving the program they helped build into a champion. Assuming the team keeps its remaining core next season, that leaves starting redshirt junior Kendall Stowers to lead 6 sophomores and 1 senior. Stowers, who won All-American honors and Most Outstanding Player at the Final Four, will lean on Morrison's ability to recruit and develop talent. When I say, hey, we can be good for a time to come, it's not just us in terms of volleyball, it's the entire athletic department, Morrison said. I think we have a pretty unique group that's going in there. Texas A&M's incredible run might signal a changing of the guard and more parity in college women's volleyball. After all, for the first time in nearly 16 years, none of the sport's blue bloods, looking at you, Stanford, Penn State, Nebraska, and Texas, made the Final Four. But Morrison isn't buying the underdog talk. We're a really good volleyball team, Morrison said. I don't think it's been the greatest upset in the history of sports. Morrison believed all along and is confident there's more to come, starting with defending their title in 2026. USA Today, Life section, movies. Politics Informs Role for Ex-Journalist by Patrick Ryan. Even if you don't know his name, you've almost certainly seen Wagner Moura's face. The Brazilian heartthrob has made a splash on American TV in the last decade, playing cold-blooded kingpin Pablo Escobar in Netflix's hit series Narcos, as well as other key roles in streaming shows Shining Girls, Dope Thief, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now he's all but assured to earn his first Oscar nomination for the Portuguese language film The Secret Agent in theaters after scooping up nods from the Golden Globes and Critics' Choice Awards, as well as the Best Actor prize at Cannes Film Festival. He keeps the last in his garage in Los Angeles. It's a garage, but it's also a place where I work and do jiu-jitsu. I don't want people to think I don't give a expletive. Mora clarifies with a smirk, speaking over Zoom hours after winning another Best Actor trophy from the New York Film Critics Circle Awards. In classic Big Apple fashion, I'm just celebrating with a pastrami sandwich. I'm so happy. It's not every day you have a Brazilian film receiving this amount of attention. The Secret Agent reflects hardcore political strife in Brazil. The Secret Agent, which also is up for Best Drama at the Golden Globes, follows an activist and ex-professor named Armando Mora, who's on the run from government forces in 1977 Brazil, then under military dictatorship. He goes into hiding with a group of dissidents, all while trying to reunite with his young son. There's a lot of me in the character, says Mora, 49, a dad of 3, with documentarian Sandra Delgado. Armando is not a revolutionary. He's just a man whose values are putting his life in danger. Written and directed by Kleber Mendoza Filhao, the fictional story is inspired by Brazil's complex political history. Although democracy returned to the country in 1985, it was nearly dismantled by former President Jair Bolsonaro, who was convicted of plotting a coup d'etat and sentenced to 27 years behind bars in September. It was hardcore for anyone that was vocal against Bolsonaro, like Kleber and I, says Mora, who directed a 2019 movie, Marighella, about activist Carlos Marighella. The film was censored and barred from release in Brazil for 2 years. Filhao received similar retaliation after he staged a protest against the Brazilian government at the 2016 Cannes Film Festival. Kleber and I both suffered the consequences of the things we said and did, Mora says. We were calling each other like, hey, dude, what the expletive? The Secret Agent was born from a place of complexity. How could a government in the 21st century bring back the values of dictatorship to the biggest democracy in South America? The duo met 2 decades ago when Filhao, then a film critic, was interviewing Mora about 2005's Lower City. I thought Wagner was just a great actor and a completely normal person, Filhao recalls. They stayed in touch through the years and eventually decided to develop this project together. Wagner has a great understanding of Brazil and the society we come from. He's incredibly talented and generous. I hope to make another film with him. Mora was a journalist before he turned to acting. Even as a young kid, Mora remembers Brazil being a place of rich culture and contradictions. It's the country of samba and football, but it's also built on colonization, slavery, and violence, Mora says. Growing up, I was living in the beauty of what the country was, but you couldn't help but feel the vibes of the dictatorship. He enjoyed doing theater as a teen, but when it came time for college, I wasn't strong enough to tell my dad that I wanted to be an actor, Mora says. And so he went into journalism, covering the police beat and interviewing local socialites for a TV station. They didn't have to do anything to be famous. They just had money. That sucked, Mora says, shrugging. Even now, most of my friends are journalists. I still see journalism as a tool of social justice. I wanted to be the kind of journalist that I saw in All the President's Men, but that didn't really happen for me. When he wasn't reporting, Mora was going out on auditions and making inroads into Brazilian dramas and soap operas in the early 2000s. His Hollywood breakthrough came in 2013's Elysium, co-starring Matt Damon, and he worked steadily in The Gray Man, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. Mora frequently has been drawn to political projects such as Elite Squad, Civil War, and WASP Network. My sons and my wife are the most important things I have, but being an artist is also very important, Mora says. I am a political person, so it's just natural. That's what I gravitate toward. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for December 24th. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Dan Arth.
Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 7 of You Belong Here by Megan Miranda. Following that, at 3 o'clock, is Healthy Living, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us. Are you facing... The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or